Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Faithful Dogs podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined by Zach DeFranco, Jack Robinson. Gentlemen, how are we doing on this Wednesday evening?
Doing good. Doing good. How you guys doing?
Great, man. Weather's
Allergies,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Allergies are
allergies are
killing me
bad.
right now. It's brutal. That's what I'm dealing with. But the perfect cure for that is Brown's highlights on Twitter. So you
Yes,
know what?
sir.
That's the only cure I need. Guys, before we get into tonight's episode, we ask if you would please drop a like on tonight's live stream. Help that YouTube algorithm grow. We really would appreciate that. But also consider subscribing if you're brand new to Network 216. We're trying to reach 2,000 subscribers before we reach the end of summer, and we can't do that without your support. It is free to subscribe for the channel. We also do have a membership option for $3 a month if you want to continue to support Network 216 further, getting YouTube videos earlier than everyone else. Also, you would get custom-made emojis that we have made of all the Cleveland sports team mascots that you're able to use. So take advantage of that, guy. Again, very cheap. If you don't want to do that, again, you can subscribe to the channel for free. And before we get into the AFC North, because there's a lot to recap from this offseason, just want to take a second here from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. What's up, everybody? We know that daily fantasy never stops, and Network 216 is proud to be a partner with Underdog Fantasy. Very simple to use. All you have to do is go to underdogfantasy.com, and you will just click the sign in button. You'll create an account if you haven't done so already. If you've not created an account, it'll ask you to enter code 216, and they will double your first deposit up to $100. Underdog Fantasy, live draft lobbies that you get to compete with you and your friends. It's no salary cap like DraftKings and FanDuel. You get to go to a draft lobby, pick the players you want, or you can do daily pick'ems, which give you access to all the NFL and NBA games for you to make your picks every single night. Again, go to underdogfantasy.com or use the Underdog Fantasy app on iOS or Android. Use code 216 to double your first deposit up to $100. Sign up today. And gentlemen, as we said, there's a lot to discuss from this offseason. We're going to go around the AFC North and kind of just recap some of the things that have happened across the division. So first off, the big one, I would say, some of us expected it. Some of us weren't sure what was going to happen. Lamar Jackson re-signs with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, there was a lot of talk that this was not going to happen. He cut off communication with them. He was actually his own agent during this process, which that could have been a reason that kind of hurt him during this negotiation period, even though he still got a good amount of money. So talk about his return to the AFC North and what that really means for not only the Browns, every other team now in the division, because the Ravens now, Lamar's not on a rookie contract. And the Ravens are finding it kind of difficult to put a good, solid offense around him.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think a lot of us were hoping he would leave the division and kind of leave the Ravens high and dry. That would have been the best possible option. But, the thing is that this is going to be a different Lamar Jackson offense than I think we've seen the past couple of years, because obviously Greg Roman is gone. He's no longer the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. It's now Todd Monken. So they're probably going to be trying to do a more pass-heavy attack. So we're going to be seeing a different Lamar Jackson this year than I think we've been seeing since he came out in 2018. And it's going to be interesting because he's saying he wants to throw the ball more. You bring in a guy like Todd Monken who's big in the air raid, big in passing the ball, and they're bringing in Odell Beckham Jr. They draft Zay Flowers. They've got Rashad Bateman. They have Mark Andrews. They have targets that he can definitely throw to, and it's really just going to come down to how much has he progressed as a passer, because obviously we all know how good he is at running the ball. He's the most electric quarterback runner probably ever, but just how much has he progressed since his rookie year in throwing the ball, especially just since last season, and especially since we have a more pass-heavy offense. How much are they going to be able to take advantage of that?
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at Todd Monken, like when he was the offensive coordinator for the Browns, that was Odell Beckham Jr.'s best year in Cleveland. So, I mean, something like that made sense. That's probably honestly a solid reason why OBJ went there, other than the huge 1-year deal he got. But no, cardboard. I do not think it's going to be a Freddie Kitchens offense. It's not going to be a complete and utter disaster where he throws away game plans on Saturday nights. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be different, but I don't think Todd Monken's just going to take away Lamar Jackson's game. He's going to be like, he's not going to say, oh, don't use your feet anymore. Don't be a dual threat. So yeah, you're going to see more of an air raid offense, but at the same time, you're still going to see Lamar Jackson be Lamar Jackson. I mean, I am happy for him. He deserved to get paid, in my opinion. But I mean, with all due respect, I think teams can figure out a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. So.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, Lamar coming back obviously is huge because he is arguably, you can make the argument, the best athlete in the NFL. You can make that argument, especially at the
100%.
quarterback position. And now, though, they have the task of building that offense around him. Now, they are getting Rashad Bateman back. That's huge because I think Bateman's a really good player. That dude just dealt with a lot of injury last year. You also have Odell Beckham Jr., I do think the money was the big factor. Now, Todd Monken, that is a good point, Zach. He did have his best success with Todd Monken outside of when he was with the Giants. So that is important to know. I do think that contract, they basically said, we need you this badly. And I guarantee you, if they had a feeling Hopkins was going to get cut, they wouldn't have given OBJ that contract.
Sure.
That's just what I think personally. But you still have Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews could make the case that he is the second best tight end in the league because Travis Kelce is, for me, a firm number one. It's not even close.
Yeah.
But again, it's just they're struggling right now to put the receiving talent around him. They did bring in Zay Flowers, but again, that's a rookie you're counting on. You're hoping he can be your Hollywood Brown that they traded away. So I don't know. The Ravens have a lot they really need to address. And if you look at the defensive side of the ball, what were your guys' thoughts on them giving Roquan Smith the type of contract that they did and giving him that much money? They gave him a 5-year contract, $100 million, $45 million guaranteed, and then they released one of the leaders of that defense in Calais Campbell.
Yeah, I think that was them realizing that they might have given up a bit too much to get Roquan Smith and not wanting him to just leave and make them look stupid. I think, and also I think that they didn't want to have to invest in in multiple guys like Calais Campbell. I think that they thought that this might be he's obviously, Roquan Smith is a great player. He's someone that you want on your defense. So I understand why they want him. I think that they gave up a decent amount to get him, and then they said, well, crap, we don't want him to leave. So they might have had to pay him a little bit of a premium just to ensure that they didn't, essentially lose out on all of that capital that they gave up to get him after half a season. I think it was just kind of like they kind of got bit by it.
I hate to change the subject, but Mary Kay Cabot just reported on DeAndre Hopkins. So earlier today, she basically reported that he could be a Brown if, blah, 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 all this stuff. So she just reported that Deshaun Watson still wants DeAndre Hopkins, but it's a long shot for now. No free agency visit to the Browns is scheduled, and they're not looking to add another big name wide receiver.
Well, that changed quickly.
So be it.
Yeah, that was I don't know, highs and lows this entire time. I just wanted to kind of put that out there because we got it sent to us. So, well,
that's fine.
I mean, I can't say I'm necessarily surprised.
You can't really be surprised. This wide receiver room we have right now, is very solid. I think they're building really good chemistry. Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore look amazing on the field right now together. DPJ, he does get better every year. Let's be honest, he does.
He does.
Amari Cooper is your along with Elijah Moore he's a burner over the top. Great route runner. We have a good wide receiver core. So it would have just been amazing to add someone like DeAndre Hopkins to it too. But obviously you have to have someone go if that happens. So, well, we've talked about it before.
Yeah, I don't feel like the Browns front office is in any position where they feel like they need to make this move. Obviously, if it makes sense and if the money lines up, then sure. But I don't think Andrew Berry is rushing to make any additions. Now, of course, if there's an injury in camp, maybe then we start hearing more of that. But I'm not surprised at all that Andrew Berry is not making any sort of insane leaps to try to get DeAndre Hopkins to come to Cleveland right now.
Okay.
It's just I'll just say the fact that like she changed in a matter of I was on Sports for CLE and she dropped that at 4:00. So
yeah.
Josita Anderson's now reporting DeAndre will still find a home, but in Cleveland it would take a change in team circumstances or a change in initial contract expectations. Okay. But that's what we always knew would come down to money. Like that's not a shock. Like we all knew that DeAndre Hopkins wasn't going to come here for dirt cheap. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens, guys.
She also added that Baltimore will be monitoring him, as we just said. Like we just pointed out how Baltimore, they've had trouble adding, and if they knew he would have got cut, they would have probably not given OBJ the contract. We'll see. What if they add DeAndre Hopkins? So,
and then we'll have to talk about that next week.
I guess I'll be honest. Him going to the Ravens doesn't really scare me that much. Maybe it should, but I guess Lamar. I just don't see Lamar throwing for over 3,000 yards. So maybe that's why.
Yeah,
that's quite a story to get in the middle of this. I was not expecting to hear that tonight. I'm not kidding. After she reported today, I thought we were getting Hopkins. That's what it sounded like. And clearly, I think the Titans are in this a lot more than what we think. I really do. Because DeAndre Hopkins has a good connection to Mike Vrabel. The Titans need another guy, clearly, because all they have is Treylon Burks, basically. Mm-hmm. The Lions, I think, still make a lot of sense. And the Patriots make sense. So we'll see. I mean, okay, going back to Roquan Smith, you guys think they made a mistake giving him that type of contract? Now, when you do trade a second-round pick for a guy and multiple picks for a linebacker, you're probably going to have to extend them, but I think they overpaid personally.
I mean, I think they overpaid just because obviously paying $100 million, $20 million a year to a linebacker is kind of insane. I mean, I understand that, he's one of the best in the business, but it's just so much money, especially after you gave, I guess it's not after, but now that you also have him and Lamar's contracts you have to deal with every single year. It's so much money to be tied up into those two players long term. And I mean, but at the same time, it's like he's a fantastic talent and you're going to love to have him. I'm sure that they're going to find ways to maneuver the cap around him. And I mean, I'm sure that they're happy to have him, but yeah, I do think that they at least I would say that they overpaid. I think just $20 million a year for a linebacker, even as good as Roquan Smith, is just it's almost like a non-Ravens like deal. Like it's not something that usually the Ravens do. The Ravens front office is usually well known for getting guys cheap or just keeping guys or like cutting guys that they think that they can upgrade from, and being able to kind of deal with what they have. And this seems kind of like kind of what you were saying. They overplayed their hand with what they gave up to get him, and they were kind of forced to extend him.
I think that, they will make it work, but there's no doubt in my mind now that the Ravens are not in a good situation cap-wise. They're just not, especially – now, I will say with Lamar Jackson's contract, they might have a little bit more because you can offset and make his cap hit less. Yeah. Like this year, his base salary is $7.5 million. So, yeah. If you look at the Ravens cap space, they do have $11.5 million, which is still less than the Browns. I think the Ravens, just real quick on Hopkins, the way they'd be interested is the same with the Browns. That price needs to go down, I think. But we'll see.
I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you guys think that OBJ affects all this?
I think it 100% affects it 100%. Because, dude, I mean, come on, bro. I feel like if it was between OBJ and Hopkins, any team would be giving Hopkins that contract.
I mean,
all 32 teams would give DeAndre Hopkins that contract.
Let's be real. OBJ turns 31. Well, okay, so DeAndre Hopkins just turned 31, I think, like yesterday. And
he did? Oh yeah, he did, because Watson mentioned it. Okay.
Yeah, so he just turned 31 yesterday. OBJ turns 31 in November, and OBJ is coming off of a year where he didn't play at all and had a torn ACL the year before, and he got 1 year, $15 million.
Yeah.
If DeAndre Hopkins comes off of, a year where he was one of the best wide receivers in the league, even after missing the first half of the season, and he can't get 1 year, $15 million or something similar in a multi-year deal. Why would he feel like he needs to sign there? Like, especially with the Ravens, like they're kind of forced now where it's like, okay, well, if you value him at that price point, what do you value a guy like me? Like, he's going to want way more than 15 million in that case.
His cap hit this year, just to give you guys an idea, is 1.1 million. But they spread it so far out that it, like, let me real quick. I want to see if it's going to let me go, like, see his cap hit for 2024. Okay. His cap number will be 11 million, even if he's not on the roster. So his cap hit will be 11 million, and then it'll be 11 million next year for sure. That's crazy. I get why they did it. I do, but they really overpaid there in that situation. Okay, guys, moving on to
why do you get why they did it though? I just felt like it was a very desperate move.
But they needed
a very desperate move.
They needed somebody to just because they knew they were going to have to re-sign Lamar. Like, they knew that they couldn't go into next year without Lamar.
And then Lamar say give me OBJ or Hopkins or both, basically. And
didn't OBJ sign right before Lamar got re-signed?
I think
it was
right
before. Yeah.
So like it was one of those things where it's like, hey, we got you a guy. We're investing in the wide receiver room. Like, we're doing all we can to help you. And I think that was really like one of the major things. Obviously, I think that the Ravens were always willing to give him money, but obviously, like, they didn't want it to be guaranteed. And I think Lamar wanted assurance that, hey, you're not just going to put me here and expect me to run all over the place and just like. I think Lamar really wanted to throw. He really wants to be a pocket passer. And it's kind of like the Aaron Rodgers thing, where Aaron Rodgers just never got any wide receivers through the draft, or other than, Devontae Adams, but like they never invested in the wide receiver room outside of him. And it's just like, hey, you got to get me some guys, or else I'm not going to feel like you guys are really investing in my ability as a passer. So I think that really, it was kind of just like crap. OBJ is a big name guy. He has flashes. Lamar loves him. Let's just get him on a deal that we can try to, kind of jigger the salary and just make it work.
If they're close to a deal with DPJ, they probably prefer that. I just don't get the sense they are. And I don't know why DPJ would agree to a contract unless DPJ has a chance to be the second highest paid receiver in the market next year. Truly. Because teams will always overpay for wide receivers. We saw it. We saw with OBJ, a guy coming off 2 torn ACLs and ended up getting a huge contract. I mean, DPJ, he produces again this year. He'll get a contract, and it won't be from the Browns.
Yeah, if he gets 1,000 yards, he's not going to resign with the Browns.
I would love to see him here. I just don't. I've kind of just understood.
I think it'll come down to this. I think it'll come down to the Browns will make a move. I don't know if Amari Cooper will be here past this season, and I think it'll be Elijah Moore, DPJ, Tillman, that situation, or it'll be Elijah Moore, possibly a T. Higgins wide receiver, Tillman, something like that. That's what I think they're going to do, and I think they love David Bell as well. So I do think if he doesn't get extended, I think T. Higgins would be high on the Browns free agency track next year.
Zach, you're great at transitions because that's where we're actually going to move to. We're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals now. The offseason they've had, because kind of really interesting on their end. They lose their 2 starting safeties and leaders of their defense, and Von Bell and Jesse Bates, who went out and got – I don't know why they didn't bring back Von Bell. I don't care. But Jesse Bates is gone. He was expected to be back. They're running into a difficult situation now with T. Higgins, having to pay him, who you just mentioned. They re-signed Jermaine Pratt, which is a good signing for them. I will tell you that Orlando Brown signing could end up looking really good for them, which helps their offensive line. Outside of that, they added Nick Scott as a replacement at safety. They signed Irv Smith Jr. at tight end to replace Hayden Hurst. Outside of that, what did the Bengals do to get better? Did they do? I'm asking you guys. Like, did Orlando Brown? Okay, let me say this: Orlando Brown is an upgrade to their offensive line. Like, there's no doubt he is. what outside of that did they do to upgrade their roster? Truly, like, what did they do? Can you guys tell me something they did? Because to me, it looks like on paper they do have Burrow, they have Higgins, Chase, Mixon still for now. Outside of and Tyler Boyd. Outside of that, though, that's why you're a contender, because your defense just got worse. So, how do you guys feel about the Bengals offseason?
Well, I feel like them getting Orlando Brown was obviously a big plus. We all know that Joe Burrow is, he spends a lot of time on his back behind that offensive line. And that was like the main thing that I think that they really were concerned about, is that you have a guy like Joe Burrow he's your franchise. He's great. He's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, and you need to protect him. So I think that they're happy knowing that they, obviously they lose a lot of the guys in their secondary, which is going to hurt them. But if Joe Burrow can stay up, if he doesn't, face sacks or face a lot of pressure every single play, I think that they feel like, even though they took a step back on defense, the amount of times that Joe Burrow will get sacked will go down, and therefore their offense will be on the field more, and they'll be able to score more points. So I think that they feel confident just because this is a Super Bowl roster. They've already, made a Super Bowl, almost made another one. And I think that they feel like if we can just keep Joe Burrow on his feet in the play as long as possible, then they can continue to succeed. And I don't see any reason for them to not think that, but I do think that that the concerns on the defense, because obviously the defense is the main reason why in a lot of those games they stayed in it, or they were able to really keep their opponent down. And I think that is going to probably hurt them sometime during this season, is that it's going to catch up with them. But I think that they feel confident, but I think that they are going to at some point in this season realize that they need to make big adjustments on the defensive side, because the offense can't save you forever.
And dude, that contract too that they gave him, it's very front loaded in like, what is it? $42 million is in the first 2 years or something like that.
It's kind of, yeah. I can actually pull it up here real quick. I don't know why you're front loading a contract if you got Joe Burrow coming up and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
They're not going to be able to keep boboth Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, in my opinion, with Joe
Orlando
Burrow.
Brown's base salary this year is $1.5 million. His cap hit $10.3, and then in 2024, 4.5 base salary, 16.3 million cap hit, and then after that you get $6 million base salary and then $15 million cap hit. But they gave him a ton of guaranteed money. So
it's 68% of his contract is guaranteed.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
For a guy who's not one of the he's a solid tackle. Okay, let's think about this. If Jed Wills can be solid, that's the type of money he can get. Right there. If he becomes a solid left tackle, he can get Orlando Brown money, because Orlando Brown's not that great. I mean, he's all right, but the big question, guys, for the Bengals, how are they going to make this work? How are they going to keep the band? Is Joe Burrow going to take less than what people think in order to keep T. Higgins? Because you have to already be thinking 2 years ahead for Jamar Chase's extension and for Joe Burrow's. And Joe Burrow's might come this offseason, might come next offseason. But you have those two that are coming up very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You have T. Higgins. What do you do with T. Higgins if you're the Bengals? And does Joe Burrow take less to keep T. Higgins?
I mean, you would think that he said, I would try to help the Bengals keep T. Higgins, but at the same time, he's been injured once. He's already going through his first 5 years on his rookie deal. I don't think Joe Burrow has any reason to feel like he shouldn't get max money. Like, he shouldn't get guaranteed money. Like, obviously, Lamar didn't get guaranteed money, but he also got $260 million. Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl. He's been to a conference championship. He's pulled the Bengals to the second best team in the AFC, if not the one of the best teams in the NFL, and he's one of the best quarterbacks. I don't see how I just look. We all want to say that, oh well, if he understands that he needs a guy like T. Higgins there to help him, but at the same time, it's like, shouldn't he be okay with letting a guy like T. Higgins go and get way more money someplace else, and he gets more money, and he can uplift other players? Like if he's that good of a quarterback, he shouldn't need a guy like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And I just don't see him taking less money. I just don't. Like, we can all think that it's all, they're all friends and they're all willing to lose money in order to help each other out. But this is a business where you put your body on the line every single week. And I just don't see Joe Burrow, who is, he's had multiple leg injuries just in his short time in the NFL, saying, I'll take less money for T. Higgins when he could secure, generational wealth and still be one of the best teams in the league. I just don't see him doing it. Like, maybe that's just me thinking that, he cares more about money, but why wouldn't he? He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He deserves a huge, massive contract.
I'm interested to see where you lie on this, Tyler, because I mean, even after Deshaun, there was no contract like that. I mean, obviously quarterbacks are making more per year than he is. I mean, it's just obvious, he reset the market basically, but where do you think he falls between, Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson? Because he's not going to make less than Deshaun, and I don't think he makes more than Lamar, technically. I don't think he does.
So where should he be? If we're talking where Joe Burrow should be the highest guaranteed paid quarterback in the league if he's getting a new contract.
Yeah.
The Bengals, on the other hand, can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So, like Jeff says, Mike Brown is broke, at least compared to most owners. That's the problem here. And the Bengals have shown through negotiation, and I'm not Jesse Bates. They lost Chad Johnson. They lost some of their. Just keep in mind, Mike Brown's 10 years an owner. They're not known for giving out huge contracts. They're really not. I'm curious to see how they handle this one. I really am, because you don't want to piss off quarterback. I don't know how this is going to work, because look at it, Zach. How do the Bengals do this? Are they going to wait till Herbert gets extended? Because if you do that, then you are completely screwed. Or do you try and offer Burrow something insane and get him to commit now? See, this is where it's tough, because if whoever blinks first, the Chargers or the Bengals here, someone's screwed. And I don't think the Chargers have as big of an issue paying Justin Herbert as they do, as the Bengals do paying Joe Burrow. I don't know how this goes down. I think this could become an ugly situation, because not because Burrow wants it to, but the reality is, dude, I don't know how they're going to afford this. I really don't, because it just look at the contracts right now, dude. Like, Lamar Jackson right now is the highest per year at $52 million. Now, if you give Burrow $53 million, is he good with that if he's not getting as many fully guaranteed? Because Deshaun Watson's getting $230 guaranteed, and then Lamar is getting $185.
And
so
I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's also rumors that Mahomes might get a new deal to make him the highest paid quarterback again. There was another. I mean, you seriously never know. So
so if you pull everything up right now, Lamar Jackson is $52 million a year. Jalen Hurts is $51. Aaron Rodgers is $50. Deshaun Watson's making $46 a year. Yeah, that's a lot, but that actually ranks him outside the top 5. How do they go about doing this is a real question, because the fully guaranteed, where do you guys stand on that? Should Joe Burrow get $250 million guaranteed, or what do you guys think?
If your quarterback's good enough, it's going to be fully guaranteed anyways. So, I mean, if your quarterback lives up to the hype that you hope he is, and that's why you're giving him the money, he's going to make the full contract anyways, right? So,
I mean, let's be real here, though. Like,
Kirk Cousins, baby.
Does he deserve it? Yeah, I think that if you are a franchise quarterback, that you should get a fully guaranteed contract. Now, obviously, if you're Patrick Mahomes and you're contract is $500 million, I think it might be difficult to fully guarantee it because you need to put basically all of it in escrow. But, $250 million, I think that if you're an NFL business owner, you can own it. Obviously, Mike Brown's an exception. He's cash poor. He doesn't have a lot of cash on hand for that kind of transaction. And I think that that's the main holdup. But the other holdup is, how much is T. Higgins going to want that then you have to somehow calculate that into we can keep Joe Burrow, but then we have to pay T. Higgins, $20 million a year minimum?
Mm-hmm.
Like T. Higgins is going to command that price. Like there's no way he's not going to command $20 million a year from just the flea market of the NFL wide receiver market. Like he's going to be the top the top wide receiver on the market. So you either have to overpay him, or I guess not overpay him. He's worth like $20 million a year, or you have to ask him to take less money or ask Joe Burrow to take less money. And either way, you're paying a bunch of money to these two players, but it's just, I don't know how they're going to be able to balance the books, because either you're paying Joe Burrow his full value and you're saying, well, we can't afford T. Higgins because we can't afford $20 million a year on top of $250 million, however much they want to guarantee. Or they say, okay, we're going to give Joe Burrow $200 million? And then give T. Higgins $20 million a year. And is Joe Burrow even going to accept a deal like that? I mean, $200 million for Joe Burrow? I just don't see it.
The one that's going to have to take the pay cut is T. Higgins, and I don't think he does.
He's not going to.
He's going to take wide receiver one money anyways. So why would he take a pay cut?
He can go to the open market and get a record-setting deal as a free agent wide receiver. There is no reason whatsoever why he should take a pay cut. I don't know. There's going to be a host of teams lining up for his services if he hits the market, including the Browns. I
really do believe the Chiefs will be a huge front. The Lions, if the Lions miss out, I think the Lions are
the Chiefs.
I mean, but if the Lions miss out on Hopkins, because I think they're a big team that could land Hopkins as well. If the Lions miss out on Hopkins, dude, they could give T. Higgins a bag.
Atlanta would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
T. Higgins, it's turned into the T. Higgins show.
It really has. It really has. The final team around the division, though, and there's not as much to talk about with them, it is the Steelers. Now, the Steelers haven't made a ton of moves, really, this offseason. Not that that's much to anyone's surprise. They continue to draft very well, taking a lot of players that a lot of us would be pretty happy with. They bring in Patrick Peterson at corner, so a veteran corner brings leadership. I think he's a little bit past his prime. They re-signed Larry Ogunjobi, bring in Cole Holcomb. They bring in their linebackers are probably the weakest in the AFC North. They do add Isaac Samalu, the guard from the Eagles, who is I was surprised they were able to get him on the deal they did. Outside of that, guys, they didn't really add anybody. We always want to believe that the Steelers are the worst team in this division. The thing is, every year, and we thought this last year too, the Steelers weren't going to be very good. Yet the Steelers are contending for the playoffs. So, given the Steelers' offseason, where do you think they stack up in the AFC North?
I think that the Steelers, they're always going to be in the mix because they always have a decent enough roster. Their defense is always very good, even though they obviously lost some depth at linebacker. But the main thing is just going to be how much progress has Kenny Pickett made as a quarterback? Because obviously last year he struggled a lot. He didn't have the best year. He had a very good last game against the Browns, that's for sure. But I mean, his wide receiver room is Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and now Allen Robinson. And obviously you still have Najee Harris in the backfield, and they did make some additions to the offensive line in the draft and in free agency, which obviously are big additions for them, considering that their offensive line last year was just pretty middling at best. So I mean, I would say that I don't see them really getting much better or much worse outside, of course, if Kenny Pickett makes a big leap. Like, they're always going to kind of be in the mix around 500. and look, they have one of the best coaches in the NFL. Like Mike Tomlin is always going to have his guys in a particular headspace, always ready for anything. They're always going to be competitive. So like, it's really just going to come down to, is Kenny Pickett that guy? Is he the guy that's really going to be their next franchise quarterback, or is he going to regress? As I think a lot of people are really expecting, is that they're expecting him to either make or break the season. Like either he's going to be the guy or he's going to fail, and then they're going to have to try to figure something out from there. But yeah, I mean, I think that the Steelers made some key additions on their offense, but obviously their defense took a step back, kind of like the Bengals in terms of just they got a little bit better on offense, but their defense is a little bit worse. But when you have a guy like TJ Watt, I think that they can kind of hide a lot of those deficiencies. So yeah, I think they're still going to be pretty in the middle of the road team, but they could always they can show up or they can fall apart at any point during the season.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just they're a good run organization. They have a really good head coach. They just find ways to win. That's really, I mean, at the end of the day, they're actually set up. You could make the argument better than any team in the division. If Kenny Pickett becomes
if he becomes a good quarterback.
If he becomes a good quarterback, we're all screwed because he's on a rookie contract for the next 4 years. The Steelers will have cap space to build a great offense around him. So you just hope that doesn't happen. But again, you have a good head coach. You have a pretty solid roster for the most part. You still got TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward. I will say the strategy of pretty much maxing out 3 players on the defensive side of the ball and putting mediocre players around them is quite a interesting strategy, I will say, to building a defense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They need to. I don't know if they really know what Kenny Pickett is. I mean, I think they just drafted him because he was a hometown kid, dude. Like he was the only quarterback to go in the first round of that draft, I think. So
he
have
was
a tiny.
And I don't think any. And so yeah, because he was the first that went in the first round, and no one else went in the second round. So it was definitely a pick that they made.
They might have a worse position if they did Malik Willis. So
yeah,
hard to know.
And I mean, the thing is that also the Steelers have I think from what I saw that they have like a pretty soft schedule. Like their schedule is not particularly like crazy this year. So I mean, they could always just have a really good record going towards the end of the year. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if every single team in the AFC North is vying for a playoff or a wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
So to wrap things up, guys, what we want to tie this into, we compare the rest of the off seasons around the AFC North to what the Browns have done this off season. So I'm not going to name every single move because there's been tons of them. But Elijah Moore traded for wide receiver, brought in Marquise Goodwin at wide receiver, drafted Cedric Tillman at wide receiver, bringing Jordan Akins, who has previous chemistry with Deshaun Watson in Houston, bringing Obadiah Okwankwo, trade for Zadarius Smith, signed Juan Thornhill, and again, there were signed Dalvin Tomlinson. So those are the main moves, I would say. How does our offseason stack up to the other teams in the AFC North, and how much ground you guys think the Browns picked up on everyone else in the division?
I think, I mean, personally, and I know I'm a homer, but whatever, I honestly think the Browns went 100% all in for these next few years as their window of opportunity right here. And I honestly think we had the best offseason in the AFC North. I think it's hands down, dude. I mean, you built a great offense around Deshaun. You added a new defensive coordinator and then added great talent, proven talent to that defense. How can anyone disagree that the Browns had the best offseason in the AFC North? I don't know how you can.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, right, is that I think the Browns had the biggest challenge going into this offseason, and that they had the biggest flaw that was very obvious, which was their defense was dreadful. So I think that the fact that they had that huge flaw made it so that when they addressed it in the way that they did, obviously, and investing in all these different players and getting a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, getting a guy like Okoronkwo, Zadarius Smith, getting all these big name players that are very, very good at their job, and you upgraded at defensive coordinator, and you got rid of guys that if a lot of people would say were negatives on the defensive side. And you got rid of Jadeveon Clowney, you got rid of John Johnson. And obviously then you add that onto the fact that you then also added on the offensive side of the ball by investing in new wide receiver talent, Elijah Moore. Oh my gosh. Elijah Moore, getting guys in the draft, and then you add all that stuff together. I think, yeah, Zach, I think that we did have the best offseason, because I think that we had the most things that we needed to change in order to become a more competitive organization. And also we're kind of in a similar situation as the Steelers, to be honest, because all of these upgrades are great and they're awesome. And obviously we've made way more upgrades than I think every other team, but it all comes down to the guy on the screen. Mm-hmm. If he comes out, and he's already shown flashes in the OTAs, that if he comes out and he is the guy that we think that he can be, then all of these upgrades are even better, because it means that it's all in support of an offense that is being run by an elite quarterback. So, like, obviously the Browns had the best offseason by far, but it all comes down to whether or not Deshaun Watson is the guy that we thought he was last year. And if he is, then it just makes everything better.
Yeah. I mean, Jack, you pretty much said it all, man. I mean, the Browns arguably did have the best offseason, but I feel like we've said that. I mean, I think we kind of said it. Some of us said that last year too. Like, now you got to go out there and prove it. You got to go out there and win football. You got the roster. You have the defensive coordinator. You have the special teams coordinator. Do you have the head coach? I believe we do, but we'll see shortly. You have everything in front of you. You have to go prove it on the football field. And you know what? I think everyone's got a chip on their shoulder. I really do. And I can just tell when Deshaun Watson speaks, he seems to have that chip on his shoulder. He's got to prove a lot of people wrong that have doubted how good of a player he is. Dude, I can't wait for the season to start. I think when you look at how we stack up against the AFC North, we're there. Yeah. Talent-wise, you could make the argument we have the best roster in the division. Go win the division. That's the big question.
There's one guy that needs to answer the call, and it's Deshaun Watson. Because really, all of this talent means nothing if the guy who is handling the ball can't deliver. And I think he will deliver this year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He looks so like in tune right now with the offense. I mean, like, obviously last year was a huge different situation where he had to join, middle of this, you know what I mean? Right now, it just looks like the whole team is just like clicking with him. They're just, it's like instant clicking. Every wide receiver that talks about him is talking about how elite he is, what kind of throws he can make. It's like, if he can get back to 2020 form, dude, this team is going far into the playoffs, So.
Oh, absolutely. I think that sometimes, and again, I'm not bringing up what happened, but I think sometimes just when some like a significant event happens like that in a life, not an athlete, a life of an athlete, we just take into a fact that, okay, they're just a football player. In reality, they're still a human being. It's still very difficult, regardless of whatever any of us believe with the situation that he went through, whether it happened or whether it didn't happen. That's a lot for anybody to deal with mentally, to have that over you for an entire year as you're moving to a new franchise, trying to learn a new system, meet new teammates. That's a lot. Deal with an 11-game suspension on top of that, where you have to come in the middle of a year and try to lead a team to a playoff spot after you haven't played in 2 years. It's a lot for anybody to go through. Again, I like, it's not something, don't want to dig into what happened, but like, I just think sometimes we ignore the human aspect. Like, us as fans, we ignore that human aspect of what some of these players deal with, like, and what they have gone through. Like, I mean, Greg Newsome, Demetric Felton, Perrion Winfrey, how they get on a football field after what just happened like a couple days ago, I have no idea. But again, it's so mental, guys. Like, you can have all the physical ability in the world. If something happens to you personally, or you go through something, it's going to affect you psychologically and mentally. So, again, I do think he's going to bounce back as well. I really do. And Jeff makes a good point. If we don't make the playoffs, I'll be insanely disappointed because we have too much talent for that to happen. If we don't make the playoffs,
heads are rolling.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean,
if we don't make the playoffs, Kevin's gone.
There are going to be some overreactions if we start off a little slow too. I guarantee it. That's just how this fan base is. But no, if you don't make the playoffs, yeah, some people are calling for Stefanski's head.
Also, Josh, the dreamer, man. It's going to be highly. He's going to have to drop that price. I don't think we're offering him at $10 million a year. I think we're offering him close to 8. Maybe the incentive to get to 12. The incentives can get to 12, but they might be offering him 6 to 8. They might not be offering him that much, man. It sounds like that the Browns are one of the teams that has offered, but it's not significant whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
especially
we'll
if there's no
not
visit
over until it's over.
If there's no visit scheduled with him either, then the interest is he wants to play with Watson again, but OBJ definitely his contract changed a lot of things for Hopkins. Now Hopkins should make more than OBJ. You should.
Absolutely.
So
100% agree with that one. As we're wrapping things up, guys, next week's going to be fun. We're working on a special guest to break that was actually at minicamp and OTAs in person to be able to go over everything that they saw and give us all the latest on how the quarterback Deshaun Watson looked, who are some of the players that have really stood out to him during this OTA period. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun conversation. We'll announce that guest hopefully sometime either this weekend or early next week. But gentlemen, as we're wrapping things up, anything else you guys want to add? Again, it's been a busy time kind of these last couple days, really, just with the Hopkins news, but also kind of mini camp. Just anything else you guys wanted to add before we say hello to our homage sponsor?
I'm just ready for football season at this point, man. I'm 100% ready. I've never been so pumped. I have never been so pumped to watch veteran minicamp clips on Twitter. Like
me and you both.
Something about this season is just it's off-season champs again.
Exciting,
man, but let's go actually win the AFC North.
For sure. Well, I honestly, this is
Craig.
Probably
I will let you know. I will let you know, Craig, next time. My bad, bro. All right. Same time every week.
Except this week. We started an hour early.
Yeah, 7 to 8 o'clock every week.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely probably one of the most excited I've been for a season. Obviously, the last few seasons I've tried to hamper my expectations just because, because we get just our hopes up and then usually something terrible happens. And last year I just couldn't even get my hopes up that much just because of the whole circumstance. But this year, I mean, everything should be falling into place. This should be the year where everything works out and we get to finally see some good Browns football for the first time in like 3-4 years.
Oh, and dude, watching Darius Smith and Myles Garrett compete.
Oh, it's gonna be great,
camp, dude. That's gonna be a fun duo to watch. That's gonna be fun. Just them going against like the sleds and competing.
Oh yeah,
who can get off faster on the sleds? And Zadarius winning some of those reps. That's
just the thing though, is that like this is gonna be the best lineman duo we've ever seen. This is going to be the best wide receiver room we've seen in a while. I mean, the fact that Deshaun has a full off season to prepare. I mean, everything about this just seems like this is the season to get excited about the Browns in every aspect, the defense, the offense, even special teams. Maybe we could be excited for special teams with Bubba. So, I mean, even though special teams basically doesn't exist anymore, let's be real. But but no, like I'm super excited. I can't wait for public training camps. It's gonna be great.
Going to be a blast, guys. Before we head out, though, just take a second. And as far as Homage is concerned, I mean, they dropped some awesome gear recently. You guys need to go check out. Jack, let's hear from you because you're like the one that gives the most in-depth Homage read of all time. So let's see what you can come up with on the spot real quick.
Well, I'll tell you guys what. It's really nice outside. I mean, we all know that. It's been really nice outside, really hot. So you need to get some new T-shirts. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know this until like half an hour before the show. I went on there because I was looking for stuff, because I always love to bring something up that I saw on their website. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if you guys were followers of these teams. They actually have apparel from the Cleveland Crunch and the Cleveland Force. So they have apparel that are pure nostalgia, like 90s soccer teams that, I mean, the Cleveland Crunch are legends. I don't know if you guys followed anything about the Cleveland Crunch. I remember watching them when I was like a little kid. So they got teams that, you know, if you were a kid in the 90s and you remember these teams and you can't find their gear and apparel anywhere else, Homage has it. They have classic nostalgia stuff from all your favorite teams, even teams that you didn't even remember existed. So if you want to go to a place that has really high quality stuff from all your favorite teams for all over Cleveland and other stuff, if you have stuff that's just pop culture related or anything like that, Homage will probably have it somehow, some way. They'll remember that team existed and they'll have apparel for it. So you guys got to go and check it out. They have a huge lineup, long sleeves, short sleeves, hoodies, everything you could want. Go to Homage. They're the best in the business.
That was perfect. Love it.
You're a natural.
Dude, I didn't know that they had Crunch and Force stuff. I love that stuff. I actually used to have a Cleveland Crunch shirt somewhere around here. I don't remember where it is now, but I used to have one. Well, I had a Columbus Crew one. I had a Force one, or I don't know where they are, but they're around here somewhere.
Love it. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to the episode of the Faithful Dog Podcast. Remember, drop a like on tonight's live stream. Subscribe if you're brand new. Network 216 if we're trying to reach 2,000 subscribers. Tune into the Dog Chug. That is coming up tonight at 10 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great time as always. They will pretty much make your week better. So make sure you tune into them. We will talk to you guys all next week. And go Browns, baby.
Also, comment in the comment section who you think had the best offseason this offseason in the AFC North.